Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! NYM! And Indiana wins the ball game! And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Throw game for the win! Tyrese! The terror! Don't you open your mouth about that! You talk them through the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, gift dealer, woo! Wheeling dealer, limousine life, jet flying, son of a gun! Taylor's gone! Jonathan Taylor! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy!
Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
I'm never taking a back seat to anybody and don't plan on starting now. Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now! Pretty simple, I win.
But there's no doubt about it, yeah, you means you know, Kareem. You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Tuesday from high atop Rickhouse number 1 at the Hard Truth Distilling Company. Glad to have you. Looking forward to another fun day. Mike DeCourcy will join us, Chronic Hoosier, trying to get the guys from Spartan Illustrated as well as to preview the Indiana Michigan State game this coming Saturday, and plenty of other things to talk about, especially in the college football world. How are you? How's your day going? We appreciate you. The Macho Man. That's right. That's right, baby. It's right, Gene. Cream rises to the top. He was one of my favorites. How can you not like the Macho Man? Yep, that's one of the things we'll be talking about. Jack Tuttle is retired from football. So Indiana will not be facing their former quarterback in a few weeks, as he has had the starting job at Michigan a couple times, but not been able to play. So we'll talk about that and the repeated optimism that Indiana will have Curtis Rourke back for its game in East Lansing against Michigan State. Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara not on their depth chart. I'm not sure what that means. The Big Ten is investigating another fight between Michigan and Michigan State at the conclusion of their game. Pacers take another L. We'll hear from Kurt Signetti, as well as everything else we've got going on. Indiana taking on Michigan State this weekend up in East Lansing, a Michigan State team that is now 4-4 on this season after taking a one-score loss over in the Big House at Michigan last week. So we'll cover each and every bit of that and to hit up all your comments. Appreciate everybody listening, no matter where and how you're doing so, whether it is on one of our great affiliates on 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call, down on the river in Evansville in the southwest part of the state, up to the region on the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM WJOB, covering all of Hammond and the Chicagoland area. And Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan. Make sure you keep it tuned right here on all those stations if you're listening on radio for continued content right there. And for those of you listening on YouTube, we appreciate you. Make sure you have subscribed, hit the notifications toggle, and hit the like button. Light it up. Light the lamp, as they say in the NHL. Pat says he's wanted to watch all fall, but afraid to do anything different at this point. And he woke up every Saturday by to Mellencamp, and he ain't even done with the night. See you when this streak ends. Yeah, there's no such thing as, here's the thing, there's no such thing as superstitions. I don't believe in superstitions. I get that. So we appreciate you here, Pat. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think you make your own luck. And this football team at Indiana has dang sure done that. They have made their own luck through hard work, through doing things the same way every day, day in and day out. And by that, I mean hard work, putting in the work, putting in the right work, doing all the things that are necessary to continue to get the job done, because in their last outing, they did it in different ways. They did it with defense. They did it with special teams. It just shows how much of a solid team they are. Nope, no such thing. No, there's no jinx of any kind. Not by me nor anyone else. How can I jinx them? Hell, I've been on it more than anybody from day one. Now, how far can this Hoosier football team go? I am in the camp now of a 12-0 finish for this team, as long as they have Curtis Rourke. I think that they are better than Ohio State. But teams can change. They can still grow quickly. A bye week. We've seen what bye weeks can do in a positive form for a lot of teams. Look how good Indiana looked coming off of their bye. And that's another thing, though. They're going to be coming off of a bye week when they go to Columbus. And I think I like that in Indiana's favor. I've got to tell you that, and the fact that I just think that they're a more complete team. They're more of a complete team, in my opinion. Now, that environment is going to make it hard as hell. You've got 100,000 crazy Buckeye fans who know they can't stand another loss. If Indiana were to beat Ohio State, it's bye-bye. Bye-bye college football playoffs. And if you think that there was a darkest day in Ohio State football history back in the 80s, what the hell kind of a day would it be if Indiana came to Columbus and knocked Ohio State out of the college football playoff? That's right. But a few weeks away. Well, it's not even until November 23rd, that game. This week, Indiana travels north to East Lansing to take on a solid Michigan State team that Indiana is better than, but that doesn't always matter. Indiana is coming back. Will they have Curtis Rourke? A lot of yesterday, we did hear, as a matter of fact, no sense in waiting. Let's hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Curt Cignetti. We met with him yesterday. We'll hear from him again later, but here's what he had to say in his opening statement.
All right. Optimistic on Curtis Rourke. He's thrown the last few days building up. Workload will increase as the week goes on. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Michigan State, good football team, very talented. Offensively in the skilled areas, got a very athletic quarterback, run it, throw it. Really nice receiving crew. You know, the freshmen's made a lot of big plays, good tight ends, backs are good. You know, like what they do on offense, you know, they run the ball at you outside zone, go downhill, good play action game, out of pocket, some gizmos. Defensively, very aggressive, giving up 21 a game. Physical team. Good punter, good kicker. You know, they played tough schedule and been in a lot of close games. So it'd be a big challenge.
That's Curt Cignetti talking to the media yesterday about the upcoming game this week. And Pete Thamel has reported that Indiana is I think he's just reporting what we already know. But in his report, it alluded to a more positive that they expect to have him back this weekend. So I'm going to go with the fact that Curtis Rourke will be starting for the Hoosiers this week. We'll see. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. But the fact that he's back that quickly bodes well for Indiana, especially in that environment. I think that is pretty critical. If, as well as Taven Jackson has played, that's still a tough environment over at Ohio State, like I said. And that's a game that Indiana, not only can they win, I'm expecting them to win. So, Michael says that he's telling me that Ohio State will be in the college football playoffs at 10-2. Well, that's not a stretch, because we all know that the college football playoffs want an ESPN, wants Ohio State in. They want the big name teams in, but that's neither here nor there. If they make it in, Indiana to get in, I think is going to have to go. Everyone keeps saying if they go 11-1, they're in. I'm still not sold on that. I'm just not sold, because Indiana is not the brand, even though they're the darling of college football right now, and the darling of college athletics. They're still not the brand that drives eyes, and I'm not sold on the fact that if Indiana is 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State, that they get into the CFP, because there's no doubt that Oregon's getting in, that Penn State's getting in because of the reasons I just spoke of, gigantic fan base, largest fan base that there is. They want those big names in. They would rather not see Indiana in. It's not an anti-Indiana thing. It's just they want what they deem to be the teams that will draw the most eyes. So that's how that goes. Pete Thamel, as a matter of fact, his report said that it appears Indiana will be getting its starting quarterback back for this week's matchup against the Spartans. Pete Thamel reported that there is continued optimism. Well, that's what we, of course, that came right from Kirk Cignetti yesterday, that the Hoosiers quarterback Curtis Work will play on Saturday against the Spartans. So with that, I mean, he's going a step further, at least, and saying more than what we have. And I'm sure that he gets to talk directly to, because he's with ESPN, probably spoke with Kurt Cignetti, possibly. So we'll see. But that would be the best case scenario for Indiana, no question. And hopefully that is the case, to get him back in the groove, if he's even out of the groove, and then to have him against Michigan. And then, of course, to be ready for that Ohio State game. So looking much forward to that. The Pacers took another L last night, like I said, and Jack Tuttle retiring from the game. I hate to hear that for him, but yeah, he's been hurt a lot, and recently coming back from another concussion, I think. But on yesterday, he announced that he is medically retiring from football. He's already a 7th-year senior. I mean, he's been in college longer than a lot of college coaches have been there. He only played in 2 games for the Wolverines this season, with 1 start. During the offseason, he underwent surgery to repair the ulnar collateral ligament in his throwing arm. And Tuttle said it just never fully recovered, that he continued to have ongoing issues with it. And he has also recently suffered his 5th concussion of his career. He said that brought forth the painful truth that he needed to start prioritizing his health. And that's going to end it for him. Starting out at Utah, then to Indiana, where he backed up Michael Penix Jr., who later transferred to Washington. But unfortunately for Jack Tuttle, his career is over. So, but Michigan went with a different quarterback last week, and it worked for them. They got the win over Michigan State at home. And in that game, I also mentioned that there was a another fight, but the Big Ten investigating that. So, man, those guys just go nuts. Last year, or it was 2022, I think. fight in the tunnel where charges were filed against some of the Michigan State players. Craziness. Crazy. Michael says he would think that people would want to see IU in the football. Well, that's not the case. The truth is people want the big brand name teams. That's just a fact. IU may be garnering TV interest now. That's because they're the darling. And don't think that I don't want them in. I'm just telling you the facts of television viewership over the years, and especially in sports. People want the big names. But so we've got to see the man take a pause for the cause and let you know, hey, we're coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. And we've got lots more coming up as Mike DeCourcy will join us next when we return and bring you more back.
This segment is brought to you by Free Think Apparel. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off of your first order. Hey, Mike, how are you, brother?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. What's new with you?
Steelers are 6-2, man. Can't complain.
Nope, sir. All right, we're ready to go. We'll kick it back here.
Let's do it
now.
This segment is brought to you by Boost Fundraising. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Well, we had a welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, joined now by our good friend Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, and a lot's going on. The NFL, Mike's happy. The Steelers are winning again. They had a game last night on TV on the Manning Cast. I was watching the Manning Cast, by the way, and they have Bill Belichick on each week with him to start the game. They also had LT with them, and
Yes.
I was trying to, which. And Bill Belichick called him the greatest defensive player in history of the NFL, and I believe that. I mean, there was no more ferocious player. I mean, if you want to have fun, go back and watch the NFL films. And there's no better film of any sporting events than the NFL films, how they do that. They have done that for decades. But when they have those guys mic'd up, there's no better sense of any sport than football when you get those guys mic'd up, because you hear every crunch, every sound, all the crap talk, but how hard these hits really are. I don't think people can get any kind of true concept of how rough that game is unless you watch something like that.
Or if you if you played any football at all, and if you did, I'm sure at some point you took a hit like that. I certainly did. I played 8th grade football, and I took a hit from the great Dennis Brumfield that literally knocked me back 5 yards. I was playing defensive end, and the offensive tackle blocked. He double teamed on the guard on the defensive tackle, and that meant I was free, and I wandered in the backfield thinking, hey, I'm going to make a play. And Dennis Brumfield came around from left halfback and literally knocked me back 5 yards. So if you feel that, then you multiply it by many years and many days in the weight room. You know that what happens in the NFL, I a lot of times I wonder how they get up and survive that. But and withstand it. I guess survive is a bad word, but withstand it and be able to come back and do it again and again and again. It's an amazing thing that the NFL players do.
Absolutely. It certainly is, but they do it, and they do it every week. And but here recently, and not that this is going to be a big subject today, but I just ironically was looking at some stuff from the Pacers loss last night. And Rick Carlisle, I forget who it was now. That
TJ McConnell. I know that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. I almost said TJ McConnell. I'm like, it can't be TJ McConnell. This is not him. But when he said his legs look tired, I was like, what? And then this is coming on the heels of Anthony Richardson's unbelievable quote that he made, in which he took himself out because I did a lot of running and I was tired. And I'm like, what? I'm sure his offensive line loved hearing that, but I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I did not see what happened with Anthony on Sunday. But remember this was his decision. TJ didn't not play himself. I mean, he was not put into the game because his coach judged that he didn't like what he saw for whatever reason. And there have been lots of things to not like about the Pacers start, but you can't. In the case of TJ, I mean, if you don't put him out there, he can't do what he does, and he may or may not be well. He may or may not be healthy. That's the thing that I think is underappreciated by the sports media in general, is that we don't know from day to day, from play to play, whether or not the player is healthy, and how a player reacts to not being healthy can be a multitude of different things. But that's something that I'm very cautious about. I always try to be sure that that you're aware of whether or not the player's healthy. And when you see in one game something come up and a player doesn't give effort, that's different than. And again, I'm not ascribing that to Anthony because I did not see it. But when we can all see when players don't give effort, and it's pretty easy to judge that it's not a function of health. But when you see a player repeatedly fall below their standard, what they've given you for X number of months or years or whatever, and they're not doing it now, I think sometimes the first question should be, is he okay? And especially in the NFL, I think that should be the first question. Is he okay? Because there's so many ways to not be okay in that league.
Absolutely. And it's a long, if we're talking about the NBA, it's an 82 game season where you're playing every couple of games, you're traveling. And a lot of people are like, oh, poo-pooing that. And I'm like, it's not as easy as it sounds, people. Going to do a job at 8 o'clock at night where you've got or early in the day where you've got it's a mindset. It's a whole different thing, but it's just funny to see that. And then now we also have, speaking of health and players being healthy, Jack Tuttle retiring from the game, current Michigan quarterback, former Indiana quarterback. He's dealt with multiple concussions. He also had an issue with his medial or ulnar collateral ligament that he said just didn't fully heal. He only played 2 games for Michigan this season, and so they've lost a guy. Cade McNamara, not on the depth chart for Iowa. Boy, it's a lot of facets, a lot of ins and outs for my big Lebowski fans out there.
College football is tougher to play now than it has ever been, and it's always been really difficult. I think that's something that we have to be aware of. And it's something that I've been itching to write about and just haven't gotten the opportunity. When we see every time you have a coach go through a losing streak, they are placed on the hot seat by the media. And I will tell you, Jim, I have declined to ever write a hot seat article. I have my bosses at the Sporting News know I will not do that. I don't believe in it. It's not my position to say you win or you're losing your job. I just don't think I can judge whether someone does a good job or not. I don't feel uncomfortable doing that. And then it's up to their bosses to decide what to do about that. But one thing that as I was mentioning, that I think is important to note is that you can't think like it's really even like it's 2015 if you're a college athletics program. You're going to have years like Kentucky football's having right now, where you just can't get anything done, and you're way below what you maybe thought you were this year, and you're certainly way below what you have been in recent years. And if every time you hit one of those years now in college sports, with as transitory as it can be, with obviously, as we mentioned before, the number of injuries that can impact the season. If every time you hit one of those years, you say, that's it, push the button, the guy's gone or the woman's gone, depending on the sport. If you do that every time, you are damaging your product and you will have a difficult time sustaining success. It can't be 1 year. I mean, Florida State, for instance, there are a lot of people itchy down there because they're terrible, and they are terrible. But a year ago, they won 13 games in a row or 13 games in a row, I believe it was. 12-0 in the regular season. Won the ACC championship, 13 games in a row. And Mike Norvell did a great job of building them to that. Now they're awful. They lost a bunch of players to the pros. They didn't get enough guys in the transfer portal, whatever. If you say, okay, Mike Norvell got really dumb overnight, come on. I mean, what are we doing? You have to have patience now. If you don't have patience, you are going to damage your own program. If a coach goes a couple of years like that or 3 years like that, okay, maybe then that coach has just not been able to figure out the new circumstance. Or you hire somebody and they have, one good year and then a couple of bad years like that. Maybe they were never that good and you just made a bad judgment in the first place. But if you've hired a coach and they've been successful and you pull the trigger on removing them just because of one unsuccessful year, you are failing to judge what college sports are now. There are going to be tough years, and you have to be able to endure those years to get to the good ones.
Yeah, they finally got to the good ones at Indiana, but we'll get to all that in the next segment with Mike. But the Colts, speaking of the Colts, man, they've got a gigantic quandary on their hands when you have your guy that is supposed to be your guy, who is supposed to be your leader, even though there's no way he has the maturity, he has the experience to be that leader. There's no way he can. How the hell is he, especially now after what he just did, but how is he supposed to go into a huddle, look these 10-year veteran offensive linemen in the eye and get any respect whatsoever? I was trying to find a thing to send out on Twitter yesterday of, you remember, and I'm talking about the original, not the remake, the longest yard when Burt Reynolds, he has to go out, he has to, tank it to get that 21-point lead up that was demanded by the warden. And then he goes back in to try to recover everything. And they're like, yeah, screw you. And the offensive line just stands there and lets everybody just destroy him. I was trying to find that to post that because I'm thinking that's what Anthony Richardson's next snap is going to look like. But I couldn't find it. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm like going, they don't give a, they're like, dude, they're out there busting their butts every play. And there's probably no harder position physically, game in, game out, play in, play out, than being on the line. You're having a car crash every play. And I don't know that he, well, obviously he didn't think, but boy, this experiment is looking more and more precarious each week.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the pick at the beginning, Jim, because he didn't have enough experience. He wasn't ready for the NFL. And the problem you have is, I'm not a believer in put him out there and let him figure it out. It doesn't work. Who have we seen that does that? I mean, Peyton already had it figured out. He just had a terrible team around him when he went 2-14 or whatever he went in his rookie year. It was never a question of whether he would figure it out. It was just a question of getting 10 other guys out there that could play at his level, and then ultimately he would be a superstar. Anthony Richardson didn't play enough football at Florida for you to get a good gauge on what he would be. And the conundrum is that if you don't play him, then he never gets that experience. But if you play him before he's ready, then he gets bad experiences. I mean, that's why baseball has AA, AAA, single A, because you need to fail a little bit against players that have less talent than you, and then build toward the success. And in Anthony's case, he just wasn't at Florida long enough, or just didn't have, he was there long enough, but he wasn't in that position long enough to build that success level and to have that experience of having, made the wrong decision here. Okay, next time I don't make that decision, I make the right decision. He never got to the right decision. That's the problem that happens when you draft a player with as limited experience as he had at Florida. And as gifted as he is as a runner and thrower in terms of his dynamism and his arm strength, I just don't think he had enough experience. And you either live with his poor play for now and hope that he eventually conquers it. I'm not a believer that when you fail at this level that you're eventually going to do it very often. But I don't know what other choice you have. I mean, you've put yourself in this position by investing in him as your next quarterback, by investing that high pick 3 or 4 in the first round, and then by putting yourself in position for him to be your regular starter. I don't know what other option you have other than to ride this for a while.
Well, and Chris Ballard, his job is definitely on the line. There are a lot of people that have just it's not been in his camp. It's been a kind of an up and down roller coaster tenure. And if his job goes how Anthony Richardson goes, if this fails, which it's not heading in the right direction, I mean, they probably would have won. It's hard to say that, but they would have won at least one other game right now if they had Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
But Joe Flacco, they've got him on the sideline, I think.
I mean, there are things about Joe Flacco that are not ideal, but he knows exactly what he is. And
he's 39 years old and he doesn't get tired.
What's because he doesn't move? He stands back there and waits for you to make a mistake, and then he exploits it. That's what he did with the Browns last year, and it's what he did against the Steelers when he replaced Anthony earlier this year. He knows what he's doing. He had, by the time he got to the Ravens in 2007, 2008, he had experience as a backup at Pitt, and then ultimately, I think 2 full seasons at Delaware. He was ready to play, and again was surrounded by a great team when he broke into the lineup with the Ravens, and that certainly helps you. But I mean, you're looking at a team in the Colts that are successful in a lot of other areas. I mean, that's the thing about Chris Ballard is he's made a lot of really good decisions too. Jonathan Taylor, with Alec Pierce, those were really good pickups. Mo Alley Cox back when, pulled a guy out of hoops and turned him into a football player. I mean, they made some good choices over the years, but they risked a lot when they selected Anthony that high in the draft. And I for relative to the Colts, I did not think it was the ideal choice at the time. And I don't think much about how they have handled Anthony since has been ideal either.
We'll sure see. We've got lots more coming up. We're going to switch to college football with Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News when we come back on the other side of this. Brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Mall Road in Bloomington. If you're coming into town for a game or you already live here. Also on Thursday nights, that is where you can find Inside Indiana Football with Don Fisher and the man of the hour all over the country, Kurt Signetti. He is there as well. So we'll be back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their Cinnamon Vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. All right, I just had to get that one in, and producer can do all the other stuff. He can edit he gets to edit. You traveling now?
I'm actually here because I'm in Cleveland because my wife had a conference and it was her birthday yesterday. I didn't want her to spend her birthday alone.
What does she do, if I can ask?
Well, she's technically retired, but she is consulting for a media foundation.
That's the magic word, consulting. Anytime you're a consultant, that is the greatest gig of all time. I don't care what industry it is. I'm a consultant. I'm a consultant. That means you have virtually no responsibilities. I'm just teasing, but I would love to be any kind of a consultant.
Absolutely. And she teaches a class at our alma mater as well. So she's been busier in retirement than either of us expected her to be, I think.
What is the alma mater? Pitt?
Point Park University.
Point Park?
Yes.
How about Pitt? 6-0 Pitt.
Yeah.
Are they for real? I mean, I'm going to bring this up here in a little bit, but
what does for real mean?
I know. I just haven't seen them, and so
yeah. But I mean, what does it mean? Like, can they win the national championship? No, they cannot.
Okay. Indiana, everybody said, I'm like, yeah, I think they're for real. Now, when you pose that question, I doubt it. I have not watched Georgia live, but just knowing what Georgia and those teams kind of usually have, that is probably a talent level up.
Yeah, I mean, see, I think IU could, if they're healthy and whole, they could beat Georgia on a day. But can they beat? I don't know. Can they beat? Let's say Alabama Georgia and Ohio State all in succession in a 3-week sequence. I don't expect that they could. That's where the talent level ultimately gets you. But yeah, I don't think that the way IU's playing right now, and if they're healthy, that I don't think there's anybody they can't beat on a given day. I just would have my doubts about the ability to do it 3 times in a row, or 4 if they were not to win the Big Ten.
Here we go.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. This segment is brought to you by The Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. And as usual, joined by our good friend, Michael DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Make sure you are giving him a follow and keeping up with all of the incredible content at the Sporting News. Man, college football, Mike, has been an incredible season so far. Of course, for the Indiana fans, it's been like nothing they have ever seen, and I mean never. And this includes the 67 Rose Bowl team. This includes anything, because there has never been an environment like there was this past Saturday on the Indiana campus with College Game Day in tow and all that circus brought. It was the amount of people there, and I've said this a lot. Indiana, the record for a game attendance is like 56,000. It was set in 69 against Purdue. That record can't be broken until Indiana expands this stadium, because they've made some, changes along the way. You can get a little over 53 in there right now, I'd say. But there were more people on site than that. There were probably thousands of people there that didn't go to the game, but the environment, the excitement, the 3-hour commercial for Indiana, the state, for the university, for the town. Pat McAfee should be on payroll by the Indiana Tourism Bureau. Seriously, I mean, he just is. He does a great job in things like that, and he deserves a shout out for that. But Lee Corso, that was incredible, getting to see all of that, the reunion of his team. You could tell how much that meant to him, and you could tell how loved that dude is. I mean, they freaking love him. There's so many people that talk about, oh, it's time for him to go. He had a stroke probably, was it 3 or 4 years ago now, and he fought back from that. And yeah, there's some lingering effects, but it doesn't matter. It's still, it's like a family member, and that's how they see him and treat him, as a family member, and they truly love him.
Oh, absolutely. I remember probably when I was in college, how often Lee would pop up in Sports Illustrated with one of his witty quotes. He was an amazing manufacturer of funny witticisms, and that ultimately led to him getting this long, enduring career in television, and good for him. He did a really nice job at IU as a football coach for a lot of years, and now he's been on ESPN. Goodness, I mean, he began on ESPN when I was covering college football at Penn State, covering Penn State for the Pittsburgh Press back in the mid-'80s. So that's how long he's been on television. It good for him. I mean, that seemed like a very nice gentleman. I don't know him well. I encountered him a couple of times, but seems like a really nice gentleman, and his success is amazing. And good for him for hanging in there after the health setback. I'm glad to see he's doing well.
I don't know how in the world you could be a football coach and still have that creative mind that he had. For those that are watching on YouTube right now, you can see a picture that I put up. It is of the double-decker bus. This is the first game ever that Lee Corso coached at Indiana against Illinois. It was like 5 minutes before the game. Illinois had been out there warming up. They're looking for the IU team. You can't find them. They're nowhere in sight. Then all of a sudden, right before the game, they come down this back, used to be a former entrance to the end of the field. This double-decker bus rolls up with Lee Corso on the back and the entire team inside of it. And that's how he started his IU career. That's just one of the things. Then you've got the famous game at Ohio State where they get the early 7-0 lead. He calls a timeout, has the team photographer come over, gathers the team, and takes a picture in front of the scoreboard. Who the hell can think of that stuff that quick? I'm like, wow. But yeah, much beloved. The first bowl win in Indiana history. Very cool. You know, he didn't have this great tenure, but he still did what no one else had done before then. He got a bowl win. So that was just awesome. But it's funny how I cannot fathom how Indiana it can be the team with the absolute worst, with the most losses in Division I. And everybody says that. It's like, you know, I understand them having a losing record even, but being the team with the most losses, it just doesn't make sense because they've had some ups and downs and they had the opportunities that other programs have had, but boy, they just screwed the pooch most of the time.
Well, and part of that is that they've been Division I for longer than a lot of teams a lot of programs that have maybe come along and not been as good. But it's not been a football school for a very long time. It's been a basketball school. And that's kind of what makes moments like this extraordinary. And it's what I've been promising so many for so long, that if we went to a real playoff, and we finally have that this year, that it would open the door for moments like this. Because again, what makes this special is not just that Indiana has this great start. That's special. Don't get me wrong. But what makes it special is that those who follow the team and those who cover the sport look at that and say, well, they're not just going to wind up in El Paso or whatever playing in the Sun Bowl. They got a shot to play real games in late December and January. And that's what makes it extraordinary. That's what makes everybody so invested in this. And to a lesser extent in the Pitt story, to a great extent, and maybe even a greater extent, into what will happen Saturday at noon in University Park, Pennsylvania, between Penn State and Ohio State. Penn State can take a huge step toward playing in the national championship tournament, toward contending for the Big Ten title. And Ohio State could fall out of this. I mean, they could be on the precipice of not playing in the postseason or in the tournament if they fall at State College, University Park on Saturday. So, I mean, that's what makes this so exceptional. And I think it's helping to engage the Indiana fans because they know that, yeah, it's cool to be undefeated. But if you lose that one game, now you're just playing in a bowl game. And bowls are nice and fun, whatever, but they don't mean anything. And that's why players sit them out, and coaches who leave for other jobs say, okay, I'm going to go recruit. But the national championship tournament, the college football playoff, 12 teams, you win your conference you're in, all of that. If you do that, if you get yourself in position for that, your games are going to matter. And that's what adds that extra juice to what IU is doing this season. And I have no doubt that what we saw on Saturday and what we've seen on 7-8 Saturday afternoons now is energized by that reality that the games, if the Hoosiers keep winning, if the Hoosiers maybe only drop one, or maybe who knows, maybe even not any.
Mike, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I've changed my mind. I think that Indiana is a better team when completely healthy with Curtis Rourke. I think that they're better than Ohio State. Part of that is I use the Nebraska comparison. I mean, Nebraska played these two teams back-to-back in back-to-back weeks. They played Indiana coming off of a bye, no less, and Indiana just destroyed them. Indiana was coming off of a bye, and Kurt Cignetti is 7-1 in that situation. Indiana will be coming off of a bye when they play Ohio State. So that is also going into my thinking, and I'm like, you know what? I think Indiana goes in there and is going to upset Ohio State. I think Kurt Cignetti finds a way to put tape on the side of the helmets of the players' ears, that they ignore all of that sound of that noise, because they've done a marvelous job of it this year of ignoring the outside noise. And they've got this gigantic chip on their shoulder. 44 players on this roster with 0 stars coming out of high school. there's probably not 44 players on the Ohio State roster that don't have 3 or more stars on their roster. So I think that they've got this chip. They want it. This is their time, and they're loving every minute of it.
Speaking of blocking out the noise, they're going to have to block out what you just said, because they still have to play Michigan State and they still have to play Michigan before the Buckeyes are even a consideration. And both of those games are losable games for IU. Not playing like they did against Nebraska. I mean, if they duplicate that performance, they're not going to lose either of those games. But as we all know, football changes from game to game, play to play. And they have to continue to perform at the level that they have to this point, or are approaching it. And that's not easy to do every week. But they did a really nice job on Saturday in a difficult circumstance, coming off that brilliant win against Nebraska, with a very good Washington team coming in, playing without your starting quarterback, all of that. And they were able to perform at the level necessary. So you have to like everything about what's happening. And I think although I won't go as far as you in terms of that Ohio State game.
Most people are smart enough not to.
But I will say that what that Nebraska performance against Ohio State did was say, well, they certainly aren't nearly as far out of reach as once seen. They aren't Ohio State, I think, is still a very good football team and has the potential to be an excellent football team. They have not reached that yet this year on a regular basis. They certainly didn't at Oregon. They made too many mistakes. And then against Nebraska, they really struggled in a lot of areas. But they still have the potential to be an excellent football team. But what Saturday showed in terms of Nebraska, Ohio State, is that the Buckeyes can be made to be ordinary. If you do the right things, you can make them ordinary. And Nebraska did that. So when you get to that point, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, Indiana can go in and feel like if they perform at the level they're capable of, that they can make Ohio State ordinary. And to me, that's just as important as sitting here saying they're better, because that's the reality. Is they're going to have to play great to win that game. They're going to have to play very well to win the next two. But they'll have to play great to beat Ohio State, and we've seen them play great.
Absolutely, and expect that to continue, especially if they get Curtis Rourke back. Like it is, the tea leaves are starting to blow in that direction. Yesterday, Kurt Cignetti said he is optimistic about his return, and that was all he was going to say on it. Pete Thamel came out with a report that basically said the same thing, but kind of, I don't know. I'm sure he was able to have a conversation with Kurt, which all of us are not privy to do, but saying that he expected Rourke back. So that's a great sign for Indiana, because I think that they need him at Michigan State because of that environment. I'm not sure Taven Jackson was ready for that 80,000 seat environment that they're going to face in East Lansing.
It's an underrated atmosphere at Michigan State. And when people talk about the really difficult places to play, that's not one that comes up a lot, in part because the competition is so severe. I mean, you got 100 plus at Michigan, 100 plus at Ohio State, and 100 plus at Penn State. So the nearly 80 that you get at Spartan Stadium doesn't seem as intimidating, but it's still nearly 80,000 people. So it does matter. It can be a hard place to play. And Michigan State has played some good football this season. It's going to take a very strong performance by the Hoosiers to continue. Like I said, over the next 3 weeks, they have to play very well to win each of the next two, and then they have to play exceptionally well to win the third of those. But they are all in reach. And as I said before, if you continue to knock these down, what the possibilities that opens for you is just enormous.
What's up next for you, my friend?
What is up next for me? I'm working on our preseason college basketball top 25 that will be released on Monday. As the opening of college basketball season comes earlier and earlier every year, Monday of next week, the day before Election Day, we'll be hooping, Jim. Hard to believe, but we're back.
Well, we just had an exhibition with Indiana and Tennessee getting a win on the road. And I know it's an exhibition game, but I don't think anybody cares. That was number 12, Tennessee. And it was a top 20 matchup in number 17, Indiana. And they go there and get the road win. May not have been pretty. It definitely was not pretty from a shooting standpoint. But we got a taste. We got a taste of it.
I think that was a really nice performance to be able to go down there and win. Tennessee lost a lot from last year's Elite Eight team. Dalton Connect is playing for the Lakers now. Toby Awaka transferred out. Jonas Adu transferred out. So they lost a lot from that team, but they had a nice recruiting year. They brought in, when I say recruiting year, I'm encompassing transfers. They brought in a lot of good players. They still have in Zakai Ziegler, one of the best point guards in college basketball. And to be able to go down there and get a W, certainly, even though it won't add to their NCAA tournament resume, I think Indiana can feel really good about where they are as they begin and a very important season, a season in which they have some, maybe not, maybe when you look at it today, you don't feel like the possibilities are as great as the football teams, and who ever thought we'd say that. But there are significant possibilities out there. I was asked by a Kentucky writer, what I expect from the Wildcats this year. Could they be a Final Four team? And I said, think about this. Last year, Alabama played the most difficult non-conference schedule in college basketball and got smashed by almost every good team they played. But then they recovered from that, went 13-5 in the SEC. And then played really well in some crunch moments in the tournament, and they're in the Final Four. So, IU can certainly look at where they stand with what they have and say, why not us?
Absolutely. Why not? And why not? Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you as always.
See you next week.
You betcha. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Chronic Hoosier will join us and much more.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. Oh my goodness. It does crack me up now that I see so many people go, I knew Indiana was going to do this. No, you didn't. If you did, you would have said so. If you did, you would have placed a wager on the over-under for wins. Oh, yeah. Oh, speaking of which, thank you for the reminder, people. Coming up this Thursday, and I have to remember to do this during the show. Got a little surprise for you all. Pat Knight joins us on Thursday. Head coach for Marian University. So we got that going for us, which is nice. Looks like we've got also have damn it, I didn't check to see where I took a break there. Chronic, how are you, brother?
I could not be better, Jim. How are you, man?
If I was any better, I'd be you. I just forgot to look to see where I was when I took the break to keep track of that, but I didn't. So now I'm just
You just made me rack my brain for 30 seconds trying to remember Suzanne Vega is the song that you were just bopping to when I joined in.
I don't know how that came out of my mind either.
I haven't heard that song in 20 years. That's what I was thinking.
It's weird. My brain is a weird place to live, man. A weird place to live. How about this past weekend? Were you in town at least?
I was in town. I'm still trying to pull myself off of cloud nine right now. Just an unbelievable weekend.
I lost him. Well, when he comes back, we're going. Let's see.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Homes Pro Teams by Cheryl Sizemore.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this beautiful Tuesday, and it couldn't be any more beautiful as Chronic Hoosier joins us now. Sir, how are you? How is your week going, and how was your weekend? Oh, we don't have him sound right now, so we'll get him hooked back in here. Looking forward to talking to Chronic. I know that he is certainly enjoying all things that are going on there. Sounds like we've got him now. You there?
I am here. Sorry about that. I think I face muted myself. No, I am. I'm still on cloud nine, man. You could not have asked for a more perfect weekend in Bloomington. Athletics, weather, crowd, the vibes are just off the freaking charts right now. And it's only getting better, honestly. I mean, we're going to have a high of 81 today. Soccer team's got a chance to maybe lock up a share of the Big Ten title tonight. So it just keeps rolling, man. I think the entire IU athletic department's been undefeated so far since the weekend started. And love to see that streak continue.
It is a good time to be an Indiana fan, that is for sure, as the football program, we know what's going on there, which is just off the charts. You've got Indiana basketball that has started. Well, it's not, to me, it started. I don't care if it's an exhibition or not. Once you start playing, you've started. Now, you may start the regular season later on, which they will, but when you travel to Knoxville to take on the 12th ranked Tennessee Vols, I don't care if it's exhibition game or not, that counts as the start. And man, that's a huge win for Indiana. It was not pretty. The shooting was not good, especially in the first half. Some people can say, oh, it was the first game, but I don't know that I buy that, but they've got to get things together. But to not be at your best against a team that is that good and still pull out a win on the road, that's pretty big time.
No, I mean, I don't know that you can overstate the value of an exhibition like that. And credit to the NCAA for finally allowing stuff like this to happen, where you can actually play a D1, even a P4 opponent for charity, which I think is super cool. I love that element to it. But just kind of see where you stand at the start of the season. I mean, what a great tool to measure up without having to leave the country like they previously had to do, on these foreign tours. But I just thought it was an awesome opportunity to shake out a team with a lot of new faces on the roster. And just see where things stand. And, after the dust settles, I think a lot of people are starting to realize Indiana's sitting pretty right now. They are in a great spot at the start of the season. It looks like everybody's integrated well. The chemistry looks good. The defense looks really good. And I just don't know that you can emphasize enough how valuable it is to go into a home arena on the road and play before the season ever starts. That was just perfect. And yes, the shooting was rough. The offense was a little choppy in the first half. But I don't know that folks fully give credit to just what a phenomenal defense that Tennessee year in, year out puts up. And, for Miles Rice to come in there in his first game in the Candy Stripes and go against the SEC Defensive Player of the Year and just absolutely ball out. You got to feel good about where things stand here at the start of the cusp of the season here.
Absolutely. And while I don't think that Indiana football can replace Indiana basketball as the most popular sport for Hoosier fans, it is certainly giving it a run for its money right now because they've never experienced Indiana football this way. And they have IU basketball in multiple years and multiple decades. They are a blue blood, and that doesn't change. I don't care that they have not been a blue blood-esque team for quite some time. Once you are, you are. But Indiana is slowly becoming a multifaceted athletics program. But most importantly, with football, it is the most important because that is the engine that drives the athletics economic train. But it's more than that. It's I don't want to say it should be the face of virtually every university. It has to be a face of the university. You cannot just suck in football every year, and Indiana did. But now, not only it's crazy that it's not like this. Most things you see a change coming. Well, this wasn't. This was just a fish that flopped from one side to the other in the snap of a finger, and now they've gone and become a top 10 program. Yeah, this is 1 year. I get it, but I don't see this changing anytime soon.
No, I think the only thing that really takes this thing off the rails is the loss of Kurt Signetti, to be totally honest with you.
Absolutely, but I don't see that happening.
It's one of those things where there's always thieves of joy running around whenever great things happen. People always want to rain on others' parade. And there's a whole lot of folks right now chiming in that, because of Indiana's stature in the hierarchy of college football, that there's no way that they're going to be able to keep something like this. And, I think it was interesting. Signetti's given a couple interviews here where he's kind of made clear where he sits on this. About a week ago, I can't remember who he's talking with, but he had mentioned that his wife absolutely adores the town, that he really enjoys working with the administration here, and that he is committed to staying there as long as the university remains committed to providing the team with the resources it needs to compete at the highest level. For those that struggle to read between the lines, he's basically saying, don't hamstring me. Don't hamstring me. And at the end of the day, we all know this is a resource game. It absolutely is a resource game. And, Indiana has struggled in the past, holding on to talented coaches, assistant primarily. But that's just the reality of the resource pool and the battle that ensues. What I thought was remarkable, though, before College Game Day, Sig was talking about expanding the East Stands and making it an 80,000 seat stadium. And it absolutely blew me away to hear him say that because I'm old enough to remember when people absolutely railed on the university for doing the North End Zone project, for doing the South End Zone project. And even though those were in no way, shape, or form primarily driven from a capacity standpoint, it was more about the infrastructure, the weight room, the nutrition center, and all the things that the program needs, the infrastructure to support it. The reality was IU was never even sniffing sellouts, but for maybe the Ohio State game. To hear the coach come out and say that, to speak that into existence, I think is it's phenomenal. Not only is it a growth mindset, but I think the reality of it is, Indiana is limited in its ability to generate revenue. And obviously, the more you win, the longer you go in the season, the more money you're going to bring. But at the end of the day, you're competing in a conference that has several 100,000 seat plus stadiums, where they're typically selling tickets for about twice what Indiana does at face. And that's just a monumental deficit to overcome. And obviously, you can always raise ticket prices as demand continues to increase and climb. But at the end of the day, if you really want to compete from a resource standpoint, you've got to figure out a way to maximize the revenue that stadium can generate. And nobody in my lifetime has ever spoke about making Memorial Stadium bigger. and on the cusp of the biggest game in possibly program history, at least home game last weekend. Here you've got Sig out there talking about, let's just blow this thing up. Let's make an 80,000 seat stadium. And it just, I don't know that folks grasp just what a radical shift in culture and mindset he represents here, because nobody in their right mind would ever have proposed that. But you greenlight the project today, you're probably 3 years away from getting a butt in any of those new seats. So and I'm not saying let's go right now, but it's certainly something we're going to need to start talking about, because if this is going to be sustainable, you're going to have to find a way to generate the resources to propel it. And as much as selling out the Rock is amazing and awe-inspiring right now, if you're averaging, say Indiana averages 40,000 in attendance, 42. You've got a capacity of 53 at $65 a ticket. Every 4,000 seats is $250,000 roughly. So if you were to go from 40 to 53, you're adding $750,000 per home game just in ticket sales. And there's going to be some increases in parking and concessions and everything else, but on a 6 home game season, you're only talking about, assuming you were to maximize attendance, you're talking about $4.5 million in additional revenue. And when you look at where the top end coaches are earning right now, just with Sig's contract alone, that gets you in the ballpark of where he could find himself here in a couple of years. That doesn't even touch the staff. That doesn't even touch all the other, tangential things that go along with growing the program up to that stratosphere. So it's something that you've got to start thinking about if you're in the IU administration, because he's got a plan for how to make this program the most successful it can be. But we're going to have to figure out a way to make sure that we've got the money to make sure that it can continue on this trajectory, because it's been an amazing ride. And there's no reason anybody should ever even consider not putting the best offer forward that keeps him in Bloomington as long as he wants to stay here. But at the end of the day, I don't think the donor base is going to be able to sustain that on its own with NIL and everything that it's become now. So in this race for cash, I just think it's wild that Signetti's out here talking about doing those type of things. And again, that's how you change the culture of a program.
Absolutely. And basketball has gone to the well deep for NIL resources. They were first to do so when it really came out. That's where all the interest was generated. And it went, pretty deep, because that was seen as a way to get Indiana back to being Indiana. And we're in year 4, and hopefully that is coming for fans this season. And the win down at Tennessee is a good start for that. But for Curt Cignetti to do it in year 1 without all of those resources, he has some, but not. Can you imagine if he had the resources that basketball has on a comparative note? Indiana that's how you become an Ohio State. That's how you become an Alabama. That's how you become a big boy. And Indiana is playing with the big boys, don't get me wrong, but as a program, they're not there yet.
No, and I think the other thing that's really interesting about the way Signetti's been able to put this thing together in such a short amount of time, his emphasis on production over projection when it comes to how he built the roster this year. Obviously, this staff emphasized guys that put up tape at the college level, and I think it's going to be probably more towards the model going forward across the board. Quite honestly, there's always going to be guys that come out of high school that are instant impact superstar players. You look at Cooper Flagg down at Duke. Those guys are one in millions, though. Millions. There's always going to be a learning curve when freshmen come up to the next level, particularly in football, because it's just so much more physical. And young bodies just typically need more time to develop to get a frame capable of playing at that level. Basketball is a little bit different, but not too terribly dissimilar. All that said, though, Sig was able to do this through the portal. And obviously he had a core group he was able to bring over from JMU, but this staff's emphasis on guys that already have done it, that have already shown they're capable of playing at this level. Obviously there's a lot of analysis that goes in there when you start talking about bringing guys up from some of the smaller schools into the Power Four, like IU's competing in. But I think you may see more coaches kind of move towards that, and I think that's just going to make the portal even more wild. It truly has become basically free agency. But when you look at, and this is not unlike what Mike Woodson's had to do this year, I think maybe a lot of folks could step back from the ledge after the Braylon Mullins decision and recognize, as much as it's disappointing to see all those resources and the recruitment not pan out, as you see with Miles Rice this year, with Carlisle, with Ballo, and on down the line, you can get instantly competitive if you are savvy and resource rich in the portal, and you can have an instant impact. Now, the sustainability is certainly going to be a little more difficult because you may find yourself doing this at a more rapid cycle, but the path is clear. You can do this. You certainly want to continue to build with some developmental talent that can come up, but anything's possible when you've got a plan and you have a staff that's prepared to execute it.
No doubt. And Indiana is well on their way, and it could not come at a better time, because if it didn't happen now with the advent of the 12-team playoff, I think Indiana would have found itself further behind, because Indiana is the darling of college football right now, the darling of college athletics, maybe one of the darlings of all of sports. And Curt Cignetti has added into that. And there are so many similarities to the arrival of Bob Knight on the IU campus back in 71. 2 years, they're in a Final Four. This is potentially going to happen faster with going into the college football playoff in year one. And who knows, they could find themselves in a Final Four, but it happened fast. Not that Indiana basketball had not had success before. Obviously they did, with 2 national titles being won before that, but it had been a lull, and it still wasn't the juggernaut that it would become after Bob Knight's arrival. And I'm not saying Indiana is going to be a juggernaut in football, but I think that they're going to become one of those programs that is in that mix. And I think we're starting to see, in college football at least, the juggernaut kind of being watered down a little bit. And I think that's great. Everybody was sick and tired of seeing Alabama in the national championship game every year. Well, that's going away now, and a big part of that is because of the portal and NIL. It has really equaled everything out, including programs like Indiana, who now they're getting it done right now on coaching and smart player development and getting the right players in. But what is Indiana going to be like when Curt Cignetti starts landing these 4- and 5-star recruits that he's coming in? Remember, people, Indiana has never had a single 5-star recruit on the football program. Not one have they landed. Well, I expect that to change, but man, can you imagine what this program is going to be like when he gets the players that he likes that are also 4- and 5-star type talent?
It's interesting because with all the changes that NIL has brought, I can't remember who I just heard discussing this weekend. Former coach, gosh, I wish I could remember. Former football coach was talking about the fact that NIL is not new. The only thing that's new about NIL, as far as direct compensation of the players, is now it's being done. It's being done in an open market, and everybody's participating in the market. Or at least, to the best of their abilities. Previously, schools like Indiana prided themselves on deliberately not engaging in that market because it was against the rules. Everybody knows it's been happening. Everybody knows it's been happening for decades. Check in with the Kentucky basketballs and your fans in your life and ask them about some manila envelopes. This is not something that's new. What's new is everybody's allowed to do it now legally. And it's amazing how market forces work like that. when everyone is engaging in the market rather than just a select few in an illicit market. And that's not to say that, cash rules everything. It certainly tips the scales quite heavily. At the end of the day, you've got to have the right staff and you've got to build the right chemistry. That goes a long, long way. But it gives you the opportunity now to compete against the schools that were previously engaged in that market when you weren't. And, this is certainly going to continue to cause some settling as teams try to figure out how to raise the resources that make them eligible to participate in that market. But, it's one of those things, though, and I would imagine you're going to see a massive spike in contributions to IU's NIL efforts after the success of this season, and that hopefully will continue to grow and snowball on them. But success breeds success, and
Absolutely.
I think there is going to be a lot of players, both in the portal and in the high school ranks, that are just licking their chops at the chance to play in Kurt Cignetti's offense. And hopefully after a game like last weekend, looking at that defense going, man, I'd love to be the guy making those big plays and finding myself on SportsCenter too. So complimentary football, man, I said on Saturday, it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And that's one of those where success often spills from one side of the ball to the other, and often from program to program. So, there is very much a belief that a rising tide's going to lift all boats. And, if you're on the field hockey team, you got to be loving what's happening over on 17th Street there, because the cash register's ringing, and hopefully everybody's able to share in some of those riches.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about expanding the stadium, and I've left this comment up on the Facebook or other YouTube thing here for a minute. Memorial Stadium, they need a new press box. And when I say press box, it's not just the press box. The press box is the least part of that. It is the suites that goes along with that. They need a deal that goes from end zone to end zone on that west side that would encompass a new press box, but more importantly, new suites. That is what's needed. And that will also do another thing. That will give more sunblock for those people on the east side of those the stadium when that sun starts to go down, when they get blistered. But a new press box is desperately needed. The one that is up now is the original press box, people, from 1960.
Still the tallest in the nation, I believe. Still the tallest in the nation. No, it's
4 years old. It's time. It's time.
But that goes hand in hand with everything we've just discussed here. Those luxury suites sell at such an insane premium. Typically, they're bought by corporate donors. That is exactly where you see the separation between the haves and the have-nots. And that's also where a lot of those solicitations, those donations, are pried out of the pocketbooks. When you get the alumni, when you get the corporate donors on campus, and they're having a good time, and they're a little bit lubricated, we all know what just an awesome event an IU tailgate can be. But when you give them the trappings that they're accustomed to when they go to Gainbridge or Lucas Oil or anywhere else around the country, that's just the standard that most folks expect. So, as much as I've heard complaints about the accommodations, when you have these sellout crowds and the concession lines, when you're a C-suite executive, it's even more stark up there. I promise you that. So there's certainly a ton of money to be made there if they can figure out a way how to maximize that. You've seen them start to put some stuff on the field. They've got the south end zone where they've been able to kind of get creative with those spaces. But you're exactly right. You've got to find a way to cater to that upper class, if you will, because at the end of the day, they're the ones dropping the massive dimes that really make everything go around here.
Absolutely. More excitement this weekend. Indiana travels to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. Also, IU basketball. Pat Knight brings his Marion team in, and we'll have Pat Knight on the show on Thursday, Chronic. So looking forward to that. Pat
Knight and the Marion Knights. It's a match made in heaven.
There you go. The Knights are all coming, brother. Well, thank you so very much.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to see how the shooting improves when we get back in the friendly confines of Assembly Hall too. I think folks are going to be markedly more excited about the shooting prowess in a familiar backdrop.
Absolutely. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore. Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you as always.
We'll catch you around. See you, Jim.
Absolutely. We've got plenty more coming up. Ryan O'Bleness from Spartan Illustrated is going to join us, and we're going to preview this weekend's matchup between Sparty and the Hoosiers. Spartacus! When we come back from these messages.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. All righty. Ryan O'Bleness up next from Spartan Illustrated, people. Get a little preview on things coming up. Holy moly macaroni, it's rolling. This show is flying again today. Crazy. It's crazy, people. I'm telling you. Oh, we've got a little bit when we come back before Ryan joins us in the final segment. I'll come back. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's see here. And let's go. How's everybody doing today? And everybody that's listening on YouTube right now, please do us a big favor. A lot of you guys listening, hit the like button. I know some of you are not listening on YouTube, but using a different format. But YouTube is always the preferred vehicle because that way you never miss a thing. All of our content goes up there, the interviews. Also, we split up the segments for you. And then all post-game interviews, post-game things are up there. Just go to YouTube and subscribe. Hit the notifications toggle. And please hit that like button, people. Appreciate you so much. We are about to come back.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. I'm so glad to have you with us. It's been a fun show already, and we've got more coming up as Ryan O'Bleness will join us in the next segment from Spartan Illustrated. That is, of course, the rivals outlet for Michigan State. Michigan State 4-4 on the year, but they're not it's not like they're a knockover team, man. They've got talent. They are struggling, and they would love nothing more than to be the team that knocks off these undefeated Hoosiers. And it's going to be a tough environment. This is going to be the toughest environment Indiana has been in all season so far. They have been fortunate. They went to UCLA, and the Indiana fans showed up out there, and that was not, what you would call a tough environment. It was beautiful. And Indiana just rocked. Then you go to Northwestern. Again, Indiana fans make their presence known in a much smaller stadium. And those are the only 2 road games they have played out of their first 8 games. 6 of them have been at home. So this is some adversity they have not faced yet. Whether it's Curtis Rourke or Taven Jackson, they have not faced this adversity. And that stadium is 80,000 strong. And let me tell you, I don't care if they're 4-4, 8-0, 0-8. They love football there. They're used to a good football program. They show up, they tailgate. They're going to be in that stadium. And do you think that they don't want to beat Indiana? Hell yes, they do. They want to be the first team to score in the first quarter on Indiana. They want to be the first team that has led Indiana this season. So there's so many different things that can make a team season and give them the kind of juice that they need going forward. But looking forward to previewing this with Ryan when he joins us in the next segment. But as reports are continue to come out, it's looking more positive that Indiana will have Curtis Rourke at the helm in East Lansing. Hopefully for the Hoosiers, that is the case. We'll see. And if so, I just think that this offense we saw it last week with Taven Jackson at the helm. There were some mistakes he made, and the INT, I'd have to go back and look at that again because that wasn't just a clear INT. It got tipped and batted around before it was brought in. Indiana has not fumbled the ball this year except for 2 times in the Maryland game. That's amazing. They are not turning the ball over. As much as they throw the ball, as much as they run the ball, they're not being penalized. All these things that Kurt Signetti talked about before the season, this is what they do. This is what they preach day in, day out. Everybody keeps asking, how have you done it? Well, all of this stuff in the aggregate is how they have done it, by doing exactly what his plan calls for, by having a team with the right players in the right positions, doing the right things, not making mistakes, not beating yourself. It's easier said than done, but obviously this is something that they are used to doing, that this is how they have turned teams over at James Madison, at Elon, at IUP. This is how that they have won everywhere. And winning is winning. And it has played at the upper level. So it's going to continue to get better and better. And I'm telling you, man, I think Indiana goes 12-0. And now I've been high on this team all year long, but they're better than Ohio State. The better team doesn't always win. I truly believe that they are a better team than Ohio State overall in totality. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win when they travel to Columbus. They've got Michigan State to take care of this week, like I'm talking about. You can't jump over. You can't ignore teams that want to beat your butt. And Sparty definitely wants that. I mean, they're 4-4. They're 2 games from bowl eligibility with 4 games to play. I'm not sure exactly. I have to pull up Michigan State's schedule, but see what they have left. They've already played Michigan, which they lost in a 1-score game. So their final games, well, they have Rutgers at home to end the season, and they have Purdue at home. So the last 2 games are Purdue and Rutgers in East Lansing. That should get Sparty to a bowl game, because the 2 games prior to that, Indiana this week, followed by at Illinois next week. That's going to be a tough road to hoe, but I think that they finish the season 6-6. We'll see. We've got to take a break. When we come back, Ryan O'Bleness from Spartan Illustrated is going to join us. We will preview this week's contest between the Hoosiers and the Spartans up in East Lansing on the backside.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
All righty. There he is. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I just pretty general preview talking about Sparty up until now, last week's game. And then, of course, coming up this week, Indiana looking like they're going to have Curtis Rourke back. We don't know for positive. Kurt Signetti is not somebody who I have seen as someone who does much game playing with that type of stuff. So I think Rourke plays, to be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah. Seems like it's trending toward that way.
How are things going for you guys?
Good. It's been, kind of a whirlwind, a lot going on all the time, but
yeah, tell me about it, brother. Basketball just started here as well, and it is a busy time. We're not used to keeping track of college football playoff standings. Or
and a surprise to the country.
Not used to having Big Noon kickoff on, and then game day the following week. It's been pretty crazy in Bloomington, which is a good thing. It's good to see. It's good for the Big Ten, I think.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get more parity in the league, and a surprise team like Indiana coming in and being able to compete on a national level, I think that's a good story.
Oh, absolutely. Although I've talked earlier, people, especially IU fans, don't really understand it, I don't think. But people still overall, they want to see the big names. They would rather not see Indiana, although it's a great story. I think that they'd rather see the Ohio States of the world and the Alabamas of the world in the big games. Maybe that changes. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, I mean, but when you look at what Indiana is doing, I think first in the Big Ten in total yards, first in rush defense. You can't really argue their resume right now. And I know people have said that, outside of maybe Nebraska, they haven't really played anybody yet, but they've passed every test with flying colors. It hasn't even been close. So, I mean, I don't really think that there's anything that can be held against them that way.
Here we go.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Joined now by Ryan O'Bleness from Spartan Illustrated. Am I saying your name right?
O'Bleness. All good there.
O'Bleness, there we go. You would think I would know that. James Patrick Coyle, a fellow Irishman, but that's a new one. Long time ago in doing research on my heritage, my name originally was like McAhoyle or something. It's crazy how all that stuff gets homogenized down through the years. But welcome in, fellow Irishmen. And Sparty, man, the Spartans football program has always been one of those strong. When Indiana was in the Big Ten East, it was brutal for the Hoosiers. Every year they've got to play Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan State was a top part of that top four. Now that is gone, the funny thing is everyone talking about Indiana's schedule. I'm like, dude, Do you have any idea what they dealt with for the decade before that? I mean, they had like the toughest schedule year in, year out. So it is nice to see them have a schedule that allowed them to do what they have done. But even with that, I don't think they're getting the respect that people probably should give what this team is doing, because they are absolutely obliterating teams when they play them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think, I think obviously people have pointed out the schedule, for Indiana, but when you look at what they've done, they pass every test easily. They lead the Big Ten in total yardage. They're first in rush defense. They've done what they're supposed to do up until this point, and they have a perfect 8-0 record. This is a good team. This is a tough team. That's going to be in the playoff picture. They control their own destiny, obviously. It's going to be interesting to see how they finish out. But make no mistake about it, this Indiana team, they can play.
And Michigan State, their offense has been kind of middle of the road as they are trying to get back. They've got a new coach, a second-year coach, as they are getting their program back to where it has been. But that is a tough environment, and this is an environment that this Indiana team has not faced this year. And they're 8-0 right now. Out of their first 8 games, 6 of them have been at home, and only 2 road games at UCLA, which was a beautiful trip. And you had a ton of Indiana fans there. Then at Northwestern, which was kind of a smaller deal with a lot of Indiana fans. This is going to be a very, very different environment. I've been to Spartan Stadium. I've been there. I know how fervent those fans are. They love their football, and they fill that stadium, and they're loud and proud.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first year of the Jonathan Smith era. But
who coached last year? Was it an interim?
Yeah, it was Harlan Barnett after all the, the scandal with Mel Tucker went down, and, you got obviously fired eventually. Harlan Barnett, who was the secondary coach, took over as the interim, and, last year was just kind of a whole disaster. So, this year, obviously you got a whole new staff that came in. Jonathan Smith is a proven program builder. You saw what he did at Oregon State, a team that, I think, the year before he took it over, they were a 1-win team. A couple years later, he's got them winning double-digit games, competing for Pac-12 championships. And, that was exactly the kind of coach that Michigan State needed, especially after what, the program went through under Tucker last year. Outside of 2021, the results on the field with Tucker were never very promising either. Kenneth Walker year 2021, that year was great, and Michigan State won a lot of games, won a New Year's Six Bowl, all of that. But outside of that, on the field, there were a lot of struggles. And then, obviously all the off-field drama with Tucker. So really this program, when Smith came over, they were starting from scratch. It's year 1 of a rebuild. So some of the growing pains that you're seeing MSU go through this year, 4-4 record, some ups and downs. Quarterback Aiden Childs, he'll make some spectacular wow plays for you, and he'll also make some very frustrating plays where he's turning the ball over way too much, which has been a large issue for MSU this year. And just inconsistency in the red zone and stuff like. And then, like I said, it's just growing pains with this team because it's the first year of a rebuild. Jonathan Smith knows. He's basically building this thing up from the ground level. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, right now we see the numbers there. They're averaging 21 points a game and giving up 21.5 points a game, hence a 4-4 record, which it kind of goes along with that. But they're only 2 games from bowl eligibility, and I was looking at the schedule. While their next 2 games are probably, I still think Indiana comes up there and wins. Then they play at Illinois, which is going to be very, very difficult. But they finish the year at home against Purdue and daggone it, I forget who the other
Rutgers.
So I think that this is a bowl team. I think they make it into a bowl, and that's something for a team that is battling like they are to make a bowl eligibility. That's huge.
Yeah, I think that was always kind of the goal, going into this year. Like I said, everybody understood. I think most level-headed Michigan State fans understood what this year was, the first year of a rebuild. like bowl game, that is a success for the first year under a new regime. Michigan State hasn't even made a bowl game the last 2 years. And I believe they haven't made one 3 of the last 4 years, outside of that 2021 year. So being able to get that bowl game, get those 15 extra practices or whatever it is for, a young team. This team had 61 new players on it this year, between transfers, freshmen, walk-ons, all that. There was a lot of, coming together and gelling this team had to do, which I think they've done a pretty good job of this year. And they buy into the coach's vision for the future and what's going on. But at the same time, they're trying to win now too. And so, my prediction for this team going into the year was somewhere around 6-6, 7-5, which is still within reach. But I think a bowl game was the goal, and anything after that was just kind of like a cherry on top.
Absolutely, as it should be. It sounds very wise. What is the thought? What is the perception of this Indiana program right now, where they are? They're as far as in the Big Ten, their defense is, I don't know if they're still second or if they've moved up to first in points per game allowed. The offense was leading the conference in several categories as well. They were the top scoring team in the nation until last week with the backup Taven Jackson going in, and they only scored 31 points for just the second time this year when they opened the season with 31, but they had scored over 40 points in every game in between. The offense was just humming. Everyone saw what they did to Nebraska's 7th ranked defense. What are the thoughts of this Indiana team?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Michigan State fans, obviously the coaching staff, the players, they all think this team, is for real. They're going to take this game very seriously. Michigan State's obviously coming off of a big rivalry game against Michigan, tough loss. But, based on everything Jonathan Smith has said this week and the players are ready to turn the page, they know that their full attention needs to be on this Indiana team. It's an undefeated team. Like you said, Indiana does have to come on the road, play in a tough stadium and, in Spartan Stadium and all of that. But, this is one of the better teams that Michigan State's going to play all year, and they have to have their full focus on them. They know that this team, especially if Rourke is back this week, they know this team's going to be able to throw it, that they can run it. As you pointed out, Indiana, I believe they lead the Big Ten in points per game, second in points per game allowed defensively, I believe first in rush defense. So Indiana's not just doing it on one side of the ball, right? They have a really good offense that can score with anybody. They have a defense that's stopping, shutting down opponents. Like, this is a really tough matchup, and Michigan State's going to have to come in with a really good game plan. We'll see if Rourke does play. How his thumb or hand affects him throwing. But this Indiana team is obviously very confident. They haven't lost a game yet. Curt Cignetti, some people might call him borderline arrogant, but he's right. He wins. It's just what he does anywhere he goes. This guy wins, and so, yeah, Michigan State's going to be fully prepared. They know what this game is, what this team is. This team is really good.
Yeah, a lot of what Curt Cignetti does is with purpose. And if you're not around him enough, you don't get that. And he does enjoy a little of it, but a lot of it is with purpose. He draws the attention off of his team that way. And I think that's a wise move. And I always like to say, if you can do it, it ain't bragging. And he has laid the facts down. Now, it is pretty shocking to see all that he has prophesied so far coming to fruition. But what does Sparty have to do to have a chance at actually winning this game this Saturday?
As I've mentioned, turnovers have been a really big issue with this team. Aiden Childs had a really costly fumble in the waning seconds of the first half against Michigan that set them up for a field goal right before the half, and they went into halftime with the lead instead of MSU leading, and then so that has to be something that they clean up on Saturday if they're going to have any shot to beat the Hoosiers. Costly penalties have also been an issue for this team this year. I mentioned inconsistency in the red zone. They have to find ways to get into the end zone when they're getting that close. And And Michigan State's run game has actually come on a lot over these past 2 games. Against a tough Iowa front a couple weeks ago, they ran for a season high, I believe it was like 212 yards. Against Michigan, Nate Carter, running back, had his highest yardage total as a Spartan. So the offensive line had struggled early on this year, and they're finally starting to find some continuity and playing, basically the same 5-man group now throughout the whole game. And they're creating holes and they're getting yardage, but they have to start paying that off in the end zone. So, that's really what Michigan State has been preaching all year is clean up the turnovers, be better disciplined about penalties, find a way to get into the end zone and the red zone. If Michigan State does that, I think they can win this game. But again, you're facing a really good team, a really good defense that's, not going to give you a lot of opportunities. So you cannot give opportunities away by giving the ball away.
Yeah. And all things are pointing towards the return of Curtis Rourke. But if that is not the case, Taven Jackson is a different beast, because this environment is something that he is definitely not endured yet as the IU quarterback. And that would be a huge difference, I think, for Indiana, although they still managed to do things just fine last week against Washington with him running the show. He threw one pick, but that was a tipped, batted around ball. So I'm not going to throw a lot of shade on him for that one. But the running game by Indiana took over and closed that game out. And that's the thing for me that has been the killer for all opponents this year against Indiana, is they are so multifaceted within the multifacet of their offense. Their receiving core has 8 guys that are going to catch the ball. The running game has 4 or 5 guys that are going to run the ball. And there are definitely guys that stand out in each of those. Elijah Surratt is one of the top receivers, but you've got Miles Cross, Omar Cooper Jr. Then in the backfield, Justice Ellison, what a game he had last week. And so that is just, they're such a complete team. That is what I'm not accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Indiana can beat you in multiple different ways. They have a lot of playmakers on offense. If Rourke does play, obviously he's a veteran quarterback. He sees everything. He knows what to take, when to throw, where to place balls, when to throw the ball away, when to check down, when to take shots. If it is Jackson, like you said, going into a tough environment, that's going to be a little more interesting. But honestly, I think, as you pointed out too, there wasn't that big of a drop off. Maybe they scored a little bit less points with Jackson at the helm, but I feel like the Indiana coaching staff is also confident in Jackson if he does have to go in there. I think it will be a tough environment for him, but they can rely on that running game too, like you said. And I don't think and Jackson, he's related to Trace Jackson Davis, right? So obviously a very athletic family there. And I don't think that he's necessarily going to be scared or intimidated or not come in confidently, even though it's going, like, as you mentioned, Indiana's not really been used to going on the road this year, especially, Jackson's at the helm, but I don't see a huge drop off. I do think obviously Rourke gives Indiana the better chance to win, but I don't think that, it's a deal breaker if Jackson's the one under center there, that there's still a really good team that'll beat you in multiple ways.
Absolutely. And Ryan O'Bleness, I thank you so much from Spartan Illustrated. Any Spartan fans, make sure you are going to the Spartan Rivals site to get all of your coverage. Any place else they can find you guys?
Yeah, we're all over socials, usually at Spartans Rivals or Spartans Illustrated, depending on what it is. On Twitter, it's at Spartans Rivals. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan O'Bleness, and we're on everything else: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that.
We appreciate you, brother. Thanks for stopping by and giving us your time, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jim.
Yeah, you bet. Ryan O'Bleness joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from Spartan Illustrated. That's going to wrap it up today. Man, we've got lots more coming this week, though. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow Rick Bozich joins us along with Kyle Neddenrip. We're going to talk about that Danville game again, but don't send. But then on Thursday, don't forget Pat Knight, along with Bob Kravitz and regular lineup Shannon Griffith, Chris Denary. But Coach Pat Knight from the Marion Knights will join us. So looking forward to that. Make sure you are subscribed to you on the YouTube channel for Indiana Sports Beat so you don't miss anything, and keep it tuned to all of these stations as we go forward. That's going to wrap it up for us today. I can't thank each and every one of you enough. Appreciate you. Looking forward to it. Hope you're all back tomorrow again as we'll do this. Until then, I am Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.